WNST, house in Baltimore, and beyond the Ravens and winnings and losings to Pittsburgh and the big victory out in Oakland. And, of course, the Chicago Bears come in this week, and we're in a little bit of a period of NFC North teams. We will not see the Detroit Lions until early December. This guy covers the Lions, but he sees a lot of Lions and Tigers and Bears. He is the Lions beat writer for the Detroit Free Press. They pronounce it Freep.com. That's free P, Freep.com. And you can find him out on Twitter, as well as his beautiful children at Dave Burkett. That's Birkett. And you can find him out on Twitter. Tens of thousands of those in Honolulu Blue Dew. What the hell happened to the Lions this weekend? I mean, all the home teams got a lot of explaining to do, Dave, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. Look, the Lions, they actually went into the game saying that they didn't think Cam Newton could beat them through the air and wanted to make him prove that he could do it, and he sure went ahead and did that. I mean, a couple big plays, a couple bust plays that the Panthers did, and the Lions defense that had been so opportunistic this year, forcing 11 turnovers in the first 4 games, didn't force a single one and got in a big hole, and they didn't have the offense to catch up.
Yeah, we know that story in Baltimore. We had 10 turnovers in the first 2 weeks, didn't pee a drop for 2 weeks, couldn't get on the scoreboard, and then, you pick up a fumble, you strip, and it changes a game. I mean, defensive turnovers, we hear about all these stats in the league and running versus passing and all sorts of packages. If you look at the turnover battle in the league every single week, the team that turns the ball over loses more times than not. And for teams defensively that can be opportunistic, it can really sort of patch up some problems with the offense. Certainly did around here the first couple of weeks.
That's exactly what's happened with the Lions to this point, too. I mean, look, there was a defense last year that really got shredded. I mean, they set an NFL record for highest completion percentage against, and they went out this year and, they added a new middle linebacker in Jared Davis. They made some other changes, really some depth changes as much as anything. They've got a good defensive coordinator who you guys know from there, Terrell Austin, and that defense is playing pretty well. And really that was the key to the Lions. Their hot start was just all the production that they were getting from really defense and special teams. It covered up some of the inadequacies that they had on the offensive side of the ball. And now going forward, I think they need to mesh those two a little bit better. Get a little bit more. Matthew Stafford's fine, but they need to get a little bit more out of that offense. Give him more protection, more time to get the ball downfield.
You go back to the Ravens winning Super Bowls and the good vibes around here, and it feels like a long, long time ago now, Dave. But, I mean, you look up and, you don't just mention Terrell Austin. Obviously, Jim Caldwell out there, but Haloti Ngata. They brought out Brandon Copeland before his injury. He was a Baltimore kid. And Ricky Wagner, who I ran into in the airport wearing his Milwaukee Brewers hat right after he signed his deal back in the spring. There's a lot of purple going on in that building, and a lot of probably the way we did it in Baltimore's to some degree there, right?
I think that's right. I mean, I think they're two teams that have relied on the fundamentals and maybe think that you don't have to necessarily win by airing the ball out 50 times a game or those old greatest show on turf sort of ways. And yeah, look, they've signed some cornerstone or added some cornerstone players from Baltimore. Wagner, he's been a little up and down this year at right tackle, and Ngata has played well at times. He got hurt last week, hurt his elbow, so don't know exactly what his status will be for this weekend's game. But I think there's certainly some similarities between the two teams.
Dave Burkett covering all things Lions out in Detroit for the Free Press. You can follow him at Dave Burkett. That's Birkett out on Twitter. All right, so tell me, from the Lions' perspective, do you really expect them to get to 11? I think the expectations have been ratcheted up there to some degree, but I have not looked at them as a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did not look at this personnel and say that.
Well, I didn't think so coming into the year. I mean, I still wouldn't, call them a Super Bowl team, but from what we've seen so far through 5 games, I think they have the ability to compete with anybody on their schedule and anybody in the NFC for that matter. I mean, look, the Packers are still a better team. The Falcons are a better team. The Cowboys, if they're right, I think they're a better team. But I think the Lions would be in just about any game they played against those teams, because of that defense and because when you have number 9, Matthew Stafford at quarterback, the things he can do late in games, I think you always have a chance. So, the Lions aren't a perfect team. They have some flaws. Their offensive line has really struggled so far. They need to get more out of their pass rush. I'm not sure that their pace of takeaways is sustainable, but, they're a fundamentally solid team, and for that reason, I give them a shot to, win the NFC North, and if you get a home game, especially in the playoffs, you got a shot to go far in January.
Packers have sort of emerged here, right? I mean, an impressive victory on Sunday going to Dallas and winning, and obviously Aaron Rodgers gives you the ability to come back at any point within the framework of that offense. Some thoughts about comparing and contrasting, because at this point I see the Packers as a step better, and maybe it's just because I'm not the believer in Stafford that other people are at this point.
No, I mean, I agree with you. Look, when you have Aaron Rodgers, he's the best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion, right? I mean, I think you're always going to be the team to beat, and they certainly have some dynamic weapons on offense with that receiver core. Jordy Nelson looks like the Jordy of old. Devontae Adams had a great game last week. So, I think Green Bay does some things better than the Lions do, but, the Packers have their own share of injuries. I mean, they've missed some really key players to this point in the season. And as we all know, health is always the biggest key. And look, 2 of the last 3 years, the NFC North has come down to Week 17, Lions against the Packers. The Packers won a couple years ago in Lambeau Field. They won last year at Ford Field. It's going to be the same thing this year. Those 2 teams meet in Week 17 again, and I think there's a pretty decent chance that when all is said and done, it's going to come down to who wins that game, wins the NFC North.
Ravens have a solid little diet coming up of Chicago and Minnesota in the coming weeks. I feel good about the Ravens' chances coming out of Oakland that they're going to be able to compete with these teams. I think we looked at Oakland, and certainly we looked at the trip to Green Bay, which we have coming up in November, as being a couple of those you circle on the calendar, so that's going to be a very, very tough assignment. The Ravens come out of the Oakland thing. I think we feel differently about them right now. It'd be interesting to see how the Bears do with a rookie quarterback, but that can only go so well, and I don't think their personnel is there. And even the trip out to Minnesota next week, from the Ravens' perspective, it doesn't feel like a tall mountain at this point. They still have a lot of instability going on there, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Vikings have a really good defense. And, they obviously lost Dalvin Cook, who looked like he was a dynamic rookie. That was, the Lions are there. It's a game that's really up for grabs. And the Vikings were leading 7-6, and Dalvin Cook tears his ACL, fumbles on that play. The Lions go down and score the go-ahead touchdown. And that was really the turning point of the game. So I think Minnesota, if they get Sam Bradford back, they're a different caliber team. And, he just gives you a little bit more than Case Keenum. And the Vikings defense is underrated in a lot of aspects, but they have one of the better pass rushes you'll see all year. So the Bears don't have much right now. Trubisky at quarterback, the rookie going there, but I would think that the Packers game will be, or the Vikings game would be a tough one for the Ravens.
Interesting. The Lions, you get a bye week nice and early here, week after next. This weekend down to New Orleans to take on Drew Brees. But much as though I bring you on to talk about these other NFC North teams as well, you guys got the Steelers. You guys got the Browns. You guys got the Bengals. You're going to be seeing a whole lot of our division and affecting things as well. That Steelers game takes on a new meaning, and obviously that game's in Detroit. That's Halloween weekend. We're going to be sitting around that weekend. We play Miami on the Thursday night that week, watching the Steelers and the Lions do it. The Lions can be of a little bit of assistance to us around here on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks from now.
A Sunday night game for that matter, too. So that's one that, as long as the Lions are able to take care of business against the New Orleans Saints, that, you're going to see, I would think, a pretty raucous atmosphere for that one. I mean, in Detroit right now, there's a lot of good vibes about what the Lions have done. Some of it went away with the loss to the Panthers this weekend. There were some people scratching their heads saying we need to get more out of the offense. The Lions need to do this better. But at the end of the day, 3-2, the Lions are in a good spot. And if they can get to 4-2 heading into that Steelers game, I think there's no reason why A, at home they can't win it. And then, B, you look at the rest of the schedule, it sets up nicely for the Lions. So, I think a lot of people in Detroit are hopeful that this is a team that, still can win the division for the first time in 24 years.
It's been a little while. We all feel long-suffering. I feel long-suffering as a Baltimore Orioles fan around here. The Lions, there is no suffering quite like the Lions, right? From the fan base.
Well, the Cleveland Browns might have an argument, but I think it's been a while here. They haven't won a playoff game since the 1991 season. They haven't won a division since 1993. They've made the playoffs here 3 of the last 6 years, so they've done some good things here of late, but they haven't got over that playoff hump, and that's why when they start off 3-1 and they win at Minnesota, a place that's historically been tough for them, and they really take the Falcons down to essentially the wire. 6 inches short of the goal line on the final play, and they lose on a 10-second runoff. there's a lot of hope and a lot of optimism about what this Lions team can be.
Dave, I take a lot of pride in seeing all stadiums that I can, and I've been all over the league, and every time I get all of them done, like Major League Baseball 2 summers ago, we went around Schwab, then they open a new stadium on me in Atlanta. In the NFL, they moved the Chargers into an erector set, and then they moved the Rams out into 110,000 seat. I haven't been to Minnesota yet. We're going to be there, I'm sure, together doing the Super Bowl. You've made some trips up there. Some thoughts about that crib downtown there that replaced the old Metrodome that I had no fondness for at all?
Might be the best stadium in the NFL. I haven't seen the new Falcon Stadium, and it's on par with what they have down in Dallas. But it's just it's a beautiful stadium. I mean, one of the I don't know if it's the north or south side. There's huge glass windows, I guess, that open up. It's just they spared no expense really. It's a immaculate stadium. Good sight lines and huge video boards. I mean everything you could ask for. Very clean. It's just a great. You'll enjoy the experience down there. One of my favorite stadiums to go to.
All right, last thing for you, Dave. Dave Burkett joining us here from the Detroit Free Press. He covers the Lions. He'll be in New Orleans this week for all things Lions, and you can follow him at Dave Burkett. That's BIRKETT out on Twitter. NFL, the overview of all of this. How much of the protest affected the Lions and just the greater picture of the league right now? Boy, it feels muddled when I see so many empty seats around the league. Then you lose Odell Beckham. Then you lose J.J. Watt on Sunday, too. I mean, star power is going out. There's a little bit of teetering going on right now everywhere, and I would think even more so in the working class place like Detroit, and more than that in a place where they haven't won. I mean, I think it's easy to go out and support winning. It's when the worm turns that things get ugly. They got ugly in Oakland the other day.
Well, tough week, obviously, in terms of injuries across the league. I will say, I think the Lions, I don't know if insulated is the right word, but some of the anthem stuff I certainly heard from fans who didn't like the protests that were going on during the anthem. A lot of people said, hey, I'm turning away. I'm not going to, pay attention to the Lions or this league anymore. But, they had a counter protest at the game the other day, and it might have drawn a couple dozen people. So I don't know that it's having that big of an impact on things right now. I mean, the Lions, they had 8 players take a knee a couple of weeks ago after, President Trump's comments, and then the week after it was 2 players, and then this past week there was nobody that took a knee. So, I think it's back to football in a lot of ways, and the bottom line is when your team is winning and you think they have a shot to do some good things, probably most everybody that cares about them are paying attention. And when they're not winning, when they're not doing some good things, it's easy to turn away. It's easy to use the anthem or whatever else as an excuse to not watch the team. So I haven't seen too much of a direct impact on business with the Lions. And as long as they keep winning, I'm not sure that I will.
Hey, man, we'll see you in about 6-7 weeks when you guys come in here. The Lions come in the week of December 3rd. Dave Burkett will be with them. He is the Lions beat writer for the Detroit Free Press. And as they say there, freep.com. It looks to me like freep.com, but I'll call it freep. Always a pleasure to have you on, Dave. Thanks for making some time for us, bud.
Not a problem. We'll talk to you again.
Tell Jim Caldwell we said hello, as well as Rick Wagner and Haloti Nada and Terrell Austin and everybody else that's out there in Honolulu Blue. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And there's always room for you at the Planet Fitness around the corner from you. Judgment-free, the lunk alarm, all that stuff. It's still $10 a month. Go take advantage of that. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on our WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis is here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. A happier version of Dennis after a 30-17 victory over the Oakland Raiders out in the Bay Area this week. We're getting ready for the weekend. We got the Bears coming in. We've obviously got Terps on our mind as well. Baseball playoffs heating up here this week as we go to Championship Series. We'll be monitoring all that. Luke's on the backfields in Owings Mills. We've dropped the puck with the Caps. Basketball season around the corner as well. Plenty of stuff happening. Next week's Dundalk Love Week here at WNST. They are putting me into the Dundalk Hall of Fame. Don't ask me why. They're just doing it. It's on the 20th. It's next Friday. We'll have some Dundalk appreciation here next week as well. It's my birthday this week. We have a brand new feline in our lives right now, and Nyla, and we're going to be having some fun around here. So check us out. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNST TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.